I'd like to reconvene the meeting into public session. Will everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Harry. Color. Ready. Cut. Forward. March.
Thank you, students from the NNDCC. We appreciate your coming. May I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Adenizio? Here. Ms. Bradley?
Sorry, she has an excused absence.
Ms. Connolly?
Here.
Mr. McGee? Here. Mr. MacArthur?
He also has an excused absence.
Ms. Malloy?
Here.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Here.
Mr. Vondrak?
Here.
Ms. Waniak?
Here. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Education meeting for October 16th, 2018. The Board of Education meeting is a meeting of the board for the board that is held in public so that the members of the public can witness the action of the board. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. During the course of the board meeting, the Wall Board of Education offers members of the public opportunities for public comment. Public comment sessions are not designed as question and answer sessions, and issues raised by the members of the public may or may not be responded to by the board, depending upon the nature and the complexity of the issues. All comments will be considered, and a response will be forthcoming if and when appropriate. Comments regarding students and employees of the board are discouraged and will not be responded to by the board. The board reminds individuals who wish to address the board to please print your name on the sheet that's provided at the podium, to identify yourself by name and place of residence, and to address your comments to the board president. Please be aware that the board will be live streaming this evening, and the live streaming will be archived on the website. We ask participants to also be mindful that youngsters may be viewing the live stream or the archived version. Board asks that members of the public kindly turn your cell phones off or onto silent mode as a courtesy, and if you must take a call, please step out of the room. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. At this time, we have a special presentation. Mrs. Dyer.
Thank you. This evening, we have the Student Achievement Report for the district, and to provide us with that information is Dr. Gleason, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. The report was posted on the website on Friday, and Dr. Gleason will be taking us through some highlights of the report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be here tonight to present the 2017-18 Student Achievement Report. some of the topics that we'll cover tonight. We'll start with the proposed changes for statewide assessments that were released by the Department of Education on October 3rd. We'll review highlights of PARCC results. The SAT and ACT results are embargoed, so we will not be able to post those and release those publicly until October 25th for the SAT results, and tomorrow, I believe, is the last day for the embargoed information for ACT. So we'll put those up and include those in the slide presentation that are already on the website after the embargoed dates. New Jersey science data this year, if you remember last spring, was the first year of the science field test, the new comprehensive science exam for high school, as well as 5th and 8th grade. So we do not have any data from the DOE for science. Next year we will, but this past year was a field test. So I want to go over some of these proposed changes to what the assessments are being proposed to look like, how they currently look in regulation, and then the amendments that are in proposal stage. Right now, students have to take all associated, now this is at the high school level only, and then I'll show you some of the decrease in assessment times for all grade levels. But at the high school level, currently the regulations state that all associated PARCC assessments for ELA grade 9, 10, and 11, as well as Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 are part of the high school graduation requirements. The proposed amendment to that piece is that students take the associated PARCC assessments for only ELA 9 and 10, and only take end-of-course math in 9th and 10th grade. So that would either be Algebra 1 and Geometry, or that would be Geometry and Algebra 2. The assessment, if they take it in middle school, would also move forward to counting towards their high school graduation requirement. The current regulation for the passing assessment is currently ELA 10 and Algebra 1, and the proposed amendments maintain taking and passing ELA 10 and Algebra 1. The class of 2021, which are our current sophomores, the only alternative graduation option that they have is the portfolio appeals process, which is a rather complex set of evidence data that we have to present showing that a student has met alternate proficiency through various documents that the Department of Education requires. The new proposals ask that we maintain the graduation assessment options that were afforded to the class of 2020. That was a much more flexible pathway, which offered students, if they did not take and pass the required PARCC assessments, they could use their ACT scores, they could use SAT scores, the ASVAB, PSAT, and AccuPlacer. And then if they weren't able to meet the minimum threshold of passing on any of those, then they would go to the portfolio appeals process. So it's a much more flexible menu of graduation assessment options, and that is also part of the proposed changes. So we're waiting to hear further from the Department of Education if those will move into regulation. Some of the changes that will be immediate affect all grade levels, and if you see the assessment times that are currently in place, they will be reduced pretty significantly, which we think is a positive move. Currently in grades 3, 4, 5, 6 through 8 in ELA, there are 3 units, which can take place over as many as 3 days, or stacked 2 units in 1 day. And the changes will move where we have only 2 units in all grades 3 through 8. And the testing times remain the same, but a total decrease in testing time. With math, if you look at grades 3 through 5, 6 through 8, you'll see that, again, we're maintaining, we were at 4 units in grades 3 through 5. We're decreasing to 3 units, as well as decreasing the total testing time. In grades 6 through 8, we're going from 240 minutes of testing time to 180 minutes. And then in algebra and geometry, we're going from 270 minutes of testing time to 180 minutes of testing time. So there's a pretty significant decrease in the amount of testing time. Highlights of PARCC results. We take, students take the PARCC currently in grades 3 through 11 for English language arts and mathematics. Just a quick review of the performance level descriptors. A 1 is that this means that the student is not yet meeting grade level expectations for these New Jersey Student Learning Standards. A 2 is that they're partially meeting those grade level expectations. A 3 means that the student is approaching grade level expectations. A 4 is where they've met the proficiency level. And a 5 is that they've exceeded it. So ultimately what we're looking for are 4s and 5s to indicate that the students are meeting or exceeding the mastery cut scores. This will take us through each of the grade levels, showing us how we do both as a district, broken down by school, and then how we're doing against the state average. In third grade language arts, we showed a 16% increase over the state average. All schools exceeded the state average more than 10%. There was a 2% decrease in overall passing at this grade level from 2017 to 2018, but overall there was very strong performance at this grade level. Fourth grade language arts. The district showed an 8% increase over the state average. 3 schools exceeded the state average more than 10%. There was a 3% decrease in overall passing from 2017 to 2018. In fifth grade language arts, we had a 9% increase over the state average, and 2 schools exceeded the state average more than 10%. There was an 11% decrease in overall passing from 2017 to 2018 at this grade level. This year, the Department of Education and the state has asked that we provide specific targeted interventions to address some of those areas that we're looking to improve and show stronger student growth. So you'll see after each grade span a list of some of these targeted interventions. At grades 3 through 5 in English language arts, we're going to be incorporating a new digital formative assessment. Measuring Up is the name of the resource in grades 2 through 5. The product also provides diagnostic assessments and progress monitorings in a digital format, so teachers have data in real time to adjust instruction. If you remember from the program evaluation, we're moving slowly over the next 3 years to a workshop model in English language arts where teachers are conferring in small groups and they can customize instruction and start to really target some of those deficits. We're moving to one-to-one Chromebooks to increase students' ability to improve their keyboarding, their writing, and their research. And we're increasing the amount of informational text and work with 2 of the performance tasks from PARC, which is the literary analysis and the research simulation task. Teachers are also working in PLCs, or professional learning communities, as well as district-wide grade level articulations where they meet together as a grade level across the district, and they're looking at the data themselves and looking at where the grade did as a whole, as well as where their particular school grade levels did, and to start to make adjustments to instruction and look at curriculum. We have a new word study program in grades 3 to 5 called Words Their Way that helps to improve written expression and written knowledge. And we have talked at pretty great length about the new RTI model, or response to intervention, where we're putting in a very systematic process for identifying at-risk learners in both English language arts, math, and all of the content areas, as well as students who might be struggling behaviorally. This is 6th to 8th grade English language arts. At 6th grade, we had a 22% increase over the state average and a 10% increase in overall passing from 2017. In 7th grade, we had a 12% increase over the state average and a 9% increase in overall passing from 2017. Last year's 8th graders had a 5% increase over the state average and a 2% increase in overall passing from 2017. That's our middle school. This graph shows the same students over time. So what you're looking at here is from 2014-15 school year, when we first administered PARC. You'll see how our students did over, depending on how many years they've been in the district, how they've done over time. So the first bar graph shows our 3rd graders when they were here, and then the following year, which was last spring, how they did in grade 4. And then if you follow that chart all the way across, you'll see how 3rd graders did the following year in 4th grade, and then in 5th grade when they were in 5th grade this past spring. and then following all the way across, all the way up to our current or I should say our spring 8th graders in that last bar graph. Some of the targeted interventions at the intermediate school include also digital formative assessments for diagnostic assessment and progress monitoring. Again, increasing informational text where we're seeing some of those areas of weakness through 2 products called Measuring Up and Newsella, which we piloted last year, and the teachers and students had some pretty good success with. So we're moving forward district-wide in grades 6 through 8 with both of those resources. We also have a new intervention course for English language arts where teachers are providing small group instruction for those identified students. Additional teaching support in 7th grade it's a push-in model where we have an additional teacher pushing in the 7th grade classes for identified at-risk students. Teachers will continue to use their CD time or their curriculum development time to analyze the PARCC evidence statements and identify grade level weaknesses and target areas for those students who are at risk. And then we also have Title I programs for both extended day at Wall Intermediate School as well as summer programs that we also identify and work with at-risk students academically. We're also moving to workshop model at the intermediate school where teachers are conferring in small groups. As you know, we've gone to one-to-one Chromebooks to increase students' abilities, again, to provide opportunities for keyboarding, for writing, and research. And we'll continue to identify students who are economically disadvantaged who might be at risk for literacy and making sure that we're servicing them with our Title I programs and Title I funded programs. And the RTI model is a district-wide protocol, so it's providing teachers with more specific interventions with our struggling learners, digital interventions, and multiple resources that teachers are being provided this year and beyond. Let's take a look at the high school. This is 9th to 11th grade English language arts. In 9th grade, we saw an 8% increase over the state average and a 2% increase in overall passing from 2017. At 10th grade, we had a 3% decrease compared to the state average and an 8% decrease in overall passing from 2017. At 11th grade, there was a 2% decrease compared to the state average and a 5% decrease in overall passing from 2017. This is the same graphic, the cohort comparison, the same students over time, all the way to your far left, students who took their first PARCC exam in 6th grade and where they moved to over time in their freshman year last spring. The middle graph shows students who took the PARCC as 7th graders for the first time in 2014-15, and their data from the spring of 2018 as 10th graders. And then the last graph is students who were 8th graders in 2014-15, and they were 11th graders in the spring. So we really talked about some of those targeted interventions at the high school level because they're different, and some of the interventions and associated issues are different at a high school level than they are at an elementary level. These are some of the targeted interventions from 9th to 11th grade at the high school. This is the first year that we're moving Title I funding to the high school, which I think is really important so we can talk about extended day programs, adding additional resources to help students who are identified as at risk either behaviorally or academically. We've also hired a shared school social worker through Title I funds that we're sharing between the high school and the intermediate school. We're increasing informational text and progress monitoring through a new digital resource called Newsella. And that was one of the areas when we analyzed the PARCC data that students were struggling with informational text. So we're addressing that through a new resource. The supervisors are working with teachers to continue to analyze lesson plans, making sure that their lessons are aligned with the standards. We've provided an English push-in teaching support for Tier 1 interventions with some of our struggling learners. We're targeting English 10 classes for this push-in support since this is the high school graduation assessment requirement. We now have a unit lunch English support teacher available so students can avail themselves of some support at their lunchtime. And teachers are also using that CD or curriculum development time to analyze PARCC evidence statements to really target where the grade level weaknesses are and how they can support specific students. We also moved to a pilot with reading workshop at the high school, which I think is really a departure from often high schools move to more of a whole group instructional model and not what we do at elementary or middle school. And I think we're having a lot of success in this pilot. Teachers are really practicing that strategy of teaching and then pulling small groups of students together to really look at where they need extra support, to really target some of the areas that they're struggling. It also allows an increase in student choice in the types of texts that they're reading. And I know that, in talking to the supervisors and the administrators and some of the observers that have been in those classrooms, that there seems to be a high level of student engagement, and we're really very hopeful about that shift in the English classes. We're working towards one-to-one Chromebooks to increase student abilities to provide, again, more opportunity for writing and research. Again, continuing to identify students that are at risk and making sure that we're funding Title I funds appropriately for the types of extended day and extended school year opportunities that can benefit our students. The RTI model is a K-12 initiative and extends through the high school. And we're also making sure that we're analyzing curriculum modifications for our students with IEPs to make sure that they're being exposed to grade level standards and high quality curriculum as well. The next few slides address mathematics in the district. The first slide is third grade math. There was a 19% increase over the state average at third grade. All schools exceeded the state average more than 10%. There was a 1% decrease in overall passing from 2017 to 2018 at this grade level. In fourth grade math, there was a 7% increase over the state average. 3 of our schools exceeded the state average, and 1 of our schools exceeded the state average by 22%. There's been consistent performance in overall passing from 2017 to 2018 at this grade level. Excuse me. Fifth grade mathematics, we had a 9% increase over the state average, and 2 schools exceeded the state average. There was a 2% decrease in overall passing from 2017 to 18 at this grade level. Some of the targeted interventions that are planned for 3rd to 5th grade mathematics. Again, we have a new digital formative assessment that is for both English language arts as well as mathematics. Teachers are working in PLCs to analyze curriculum, analyze lesson plans, develop common assessments. They're using targeted math centers that are specific to students' area for growth. And I've talked to you about the RTI model that will also be addressing students who are struggling in math. We've also convened a district RTI math team this year. We go out for 3 full days of professional development on identifying students' math deficiencies and ways to remediate and support students in math skills. We have about 15 people in the district that are part of that RTI math team. We also have math interventionists at the elementary school and Title I extended day programs for our Tier 2 interventions. 6th to 8th grade math. At 6th grade, we had a 16% increase over the state average. We had a 5% increase in overall passing from 2017. 7th grade, we had a 6% increase over the state average and a 12% increase in overall passing from 2017. In 8th grade, we had 11% increase over the state average and a 20% increase in overall passing from 2017. This is the cohort comparison showing the same students over time from grades 3 through 8 from 2014-15 to 2018. Some of the targeted interventions at the intermediate school will again be using Envision Math. This is the first year we've moved Envision Math to grades 7 and 8. We've been using Envision Math from grades K through 6 for the past 2 years, and in our 3rd year we're now moving that to grades 7 through 8. So we have some continuity. We've had some success with that math program that we're very positive about in using in the 7th and 8th grade classrooms. Again, we're using Measuring Up in grades 6 to 8, so the teachers will be able to diagnostically assess students, monitor progress throughout the school year. We have the RTI model and teachers working in PLCs to analyze the data. And as I mentioned, the district RTI math team includes representatives from the intermediate school. We also have an additional math teacher available that is working during Math 7 to provide Tier 2 interventions in a push-in model in the classroom. We're also currently undergoing a math program evaluation this year in grades 6 through 12. So similar to last year's ELA program evaluation, we're undergoing that math program evaluation. So we'll present to the board in the spring. So we'll be really taking a deep dive into what our math program looks like historically, what we're currently doing, and comparing our achievement to comparison districts and best practices in research. Algebra 1. Algebra 1, we saw a 27% increase over the state average and a 13% increase in overall passing from 2017. As you know, Algebra 1 is offered at both the intermediate school as well as the high school. At Wall Intermediate School, there was a 22% increase in overall passing from 2017. In geometry, there was a 14% increase over the state average and a 3% increase in overall passing from 2017. Algebra 2, the district saw a 7% increase over the state average and a 2% increase in overall passing from 2017. This is the cohort comparison of the same students over time. This is Algebra 1 and Geometry as the students move through that course sequence from 5th grade all the way through Algebra 1 at the middle school. And then the chart to the right shows students who move from 5th grade through Geometry at the middle school. This slide is the cohort comparison at the high school, same students over time from 2015 through 2018. And again, you're seeing students who were in 6th grade through Algebra 1 at the high school level. And then all the way over to the right, students who moved through Algebra 2 at the high school. Some of the targeted interventions at the high school, the algebra and geometry teachers at both intermediate and the high school are piloting a new digital resource called Math IXL. It's a standards-based progress monitoring tool so we can benchmark students, see where they are in the beginning of the year, drill down to the standards that they're either struggling with or doing well with, and customize instruction. We're also offering both Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 7.5, which meets, rather than just on an alternating A-B day, A-B for the full year. We have, just like English Language Arts, we have a math unit lunch support teacher available all through the year during students' unit lunch. And the supervisors are continuing to work with teachers to analyze PARC evidence statements and to look for areas for growth, planning and adjusting instruction. The new RTI model is inclusive of high school. We're again looking to drill down all of those interventions, both academically as well as behaviorally, and we have representatives from the high school on the RTI math team. As I mentioned, the SAT and ACT results we'd hoped to have here, but they were embargoed until the 25th, as well as ACT. So if you'll, within the next few days, we'll have ACT data up, and then we'll also have SAT data after the 25th. Advanced placement, or our AP scores. The values in the charts, when we get to those charts, will be reflective of as a percentage of passing, and passing scores are a 3, 4, or 5 for AP exams. We had a total of 23 total course exams. You can see those courses listed. That goes over 2 slides, and the slide shows assessment data from 2014 through 2018. Some of the slides, the data are highlighted in blue where we're seeing some strong growth over that 5-year period, and some of the data where you see reflected in a pale red color are areas that we're looking for growth and looking to analyze more specifically what are some of those areas that we can improve. This slide shows a breakdown of 2018 scores, the total percent passing, and the total number of exams taken. If there were less than 10 students in the course, that data is suppressed, so you will not see all 23 courses up here, but all of the courses that had more than 10 students, you'll be able to see that data. You'll see the number of students that had a 3, the number of students that had a 4, and the number of students that had a 5, and then the total passing for each of those courses. We had some really strong highlights in our AP scores this year. You can see from 2016 to 2018 the total passing scores and the percentage of students that had 3s, 4s, or 5s. This year we had 26 AP Scholars. An AP Scholar is designated as a student who has a 3 or higher on 3 or more of their AP exams. And we had 26 AP Scholars. We had 11 AP Scholars with honors. An AP Scholar with honors is a student who has an average score of at least a 3.25 on all the AP exams he or she has taken, and scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more of those exams. We had 12 AP Scholars with distinction. An AP Scholar with distinction is a student whose average score is at least a 3.5 on all AP exams taken and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more of these exams. And we had 1 National Scholar. A National Scholar is a student in the United States who receives an average score of at least 4 on all AP exams taken and scores of 4 or higher on 8 or more of those exams. And we've had 1 National AP Scholar. The last slide highlights access for ELLs, or English language learners. This is the first year that we're showing this slide, and it's a new assessment. The assessment has been in place, but there has been a newly developed assessment this past spring, and we're going to highlight some of the components of that assessment. So these are our students whose home language is not English, and we have, I believe, 17 languages right now, approximately, in the district, primarily Spanish, but we have Georgian, we have Vietnamese, and a variety of other languages represented now in the district. The Department of Education revised, as I said, the access test in 2018, and they significantly increased the rigor. The total number of ESL students in the district in 2017-18 was 68. We had 59 students in the program, and 9 students' parents declined participation. But even if the students decline, if the parents decline participation, the students have to take the test. Okay? This last slide shows the breakdown of how students did. So to the left are each of the domains of the assessment. So the students are assessed in listening, speaking, reading, writing, oral language, literacy, and comprehension in the English language. And the levels of scoring are from a level 1, which means they're entering immersion into the target language, to the highest, which is a level 6, which means that they've reached the target acquisition. The total number of students currently in our program are 65 this year, and we've had 10 that have declined participation. So we're trying to get as many students into the program as possible, and then the assessment data can match students that have had that support. I'm sorry, there's 15 home languages, not 17, 15 home languages currently. To exit from the ESL program, students have to have a triangulated data that shows the access scores of at least a 4.5. We have to use multiple measures from PARCC scores, report card scores. The classroom teacher has to provide a recommendation, and the ESL support teacher also has to provide a recommendation. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Gleason.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions for Dr. Gleason from the board?
Madam President,
Yes.
some of the schools, the elementary schools, you had certain classes that did really well compared to other ones. do you go back and look and see what they're doing differently? And have you found anything that kind of stands out?
I think the biggest jump that you saw there in the one school, if we look back, which we do at least over 3 years, it's often an anomaly that we saw last year that the schools performed comparatively well compared to each other. This year was really rather an anomaly over the other years past. So there are a lot of things that could figure into that data. We have to look at percentages in the other schools of economically disadvantaged, the numbers of students that perhaps have IEPs, the number of students that have 504s. So, you know, if we assume that all other factors are equal, that the challenges we have to look at each school, and those differ school by school.
So sometimes just looking at the numbers the way they're presented doesn't really give the true picture of what it really means.
I don't think there's an easy answer that we could say this is why this school is doing better. The curriculum is similar in the districts. The resources are similar in each of the schools, not the districts, each of the schools. The teaching is similar in each of the schools. I think you again have to look at what are the challenges that might be present in a particular grade level in a particular year. That could be one area that we have to look at first.
Okay. And just one final question. On the highlights of AP for the 3 years listed, how many students each year took the test? So like 2016 total passing score was 304, and then 2018 was 264. Was that because there were less students taking the test, or did less students just not pass the test?
We had a total number of, now remember, the number of exams don't represent the number of students because they could be taking obviously multiple tests. So in 2018, we had a total of 191 students, but 329 total exams. The prior year, in 2017, we had a total of 183 students taking AP exams, so we had an increase this year, and a total number of exams of 395 in 2017. So we're comparable in numbers from each of the last 2 years.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes. Do we post the individual park scores for the students on Genesis?
Yes.
Okay.
So parents, the park scores were released, the individual student reports were released on August 17th, and parents are sent a hard copy home. And then those park scores were uploaded, I believe, the end of September into Genesis under assessments.
Okay.
If you have any problem finding it, let me know, and I can check with our Director of Technology. But they are there. The teachers are using those scores.
Dr. Gleason, in terms of the high school performance on both language arts and math, in 11th grade, we seem to see a significant decline in their performance. Can you shed some light on that, perhaps?
Well, I think that there are a couple things that we have to look at the high school level. I think that we have to look at what the high school experience is in 11th grade, the number of assessments that students, especially in these last couple of years, have been taking. I think that we have to really look deeply at the data in terms of where students are struggling, which we have done since we received the data. Seeing that informational text is an area that students struggle with, which is why we've brought in some of these newer resources that provide students more exposure. I also think that we have to look at students who've taken AP courses are not taking PARC, and so you have 194 roughly students who are taking AP, typically performing well, and so their scores do not become part of that student achievement data for the other courses that we're reporting out on. So it tends to skew the data a little bit.
So I apologize that I didn't think of this sooner, but it might be helpful to have the number of, do we have that in here, the number of students as compared to the number of tests
I could get that.
In that grade
Mhm,
level?
I can
think
get that,
may
and
be-
and I can adjust the report to include that data online.
Yeah, that just occurred to
Sure.
me. I'm sorry I didn't
No problem.
have you prepared for that ahead of time.
Go ahead. Dr. Gleason, is it also perhaps a variable that students have to take and pass 10th grade English Language Arts, but they only have to take 11th grade English Language Arts? And similarly, they have to pass algebra
Algebra 1.
for the graduation requirement, but have not been required to pass geometry and algebra 2, only required to take it.
Absolutely, and I think that it's a natural sort of, stance to take, that I've taken this part and I've passed this, and I am required as a student, if I sit in this course, to take that assessment, but the stakes are not so high anymore. And I think that's been very public. I think students are very aware of what the requirements are. And so again, I think the data can be a bit skewed when we look at 11th grade. Much like we had to do with Algebra 1 at the intermediate school and looking at 8th grade math when you have a large number of students in Algebra 1. So we have to look at some of this data with a little bit of a broader stroke than just what we're seeing in terms of numbers.
Is the district's investment in the language arts and mathematics in terms of the additional time and interventions, et cetera, are they equalized? Because I see that in certain schools in elementary, they did better this year perhaps in math, in high school as well, and then in those schools that did less well in language arts. Are we doing something more for math? Is that more of a priority, or is it an equalized allocation of resources?
Yeah, I don't think that we're looking at it as one thing being prioritized over the other. I think it's really more of a function of the data that we have in front of us at the time. I think that at certain schools, we have different schedules where teachers have more time to look at data, to work with supervisors, and that's important. For example, at the intermediate school, they have a daily curriculum development period. They meet every single day for 36 minutes, and they really dive deep into this kind of information and start to adjust instruction and curriculum. We don't have that same daily consistent CD period just by virtue of the master schedule at the high school or at the elementary school. We do have curriculum development periods at the elementary school. We do have CD periods and department meetings at the high school, but it's not with the daily consistency that we do at one particular school with the master schedule.
So in short, the only way to add that to the elementary school or the high school would be to have a longer school day. There's no other time to have that? I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much time,
No,
right?
I get
So,
that. I'm just
yeah.
trying to narrow it down. Thank you.
Potentially, that might be one solution.
All right, thank you.
Could you explain the correlation between there's some big increases over the state average and yet small decreases over the overall passing from the prior year? Could you explain what is that phenomena?
So, well, I wish I knew. If I knew that, I could go around the state and tell everybody. But in seriousness, I think that when we look at that grade level, just purely the grade level data, we're not looking at apples to apples. We see those students moving through the grade levels. So one grade level can look very different in one year compared to the next grade that rises to that grade level. And again, the challenges or the indicators that the state tells us to look at are students who come from economically disadvantaged homes, students with IEPs, and students who are English language learners. So you can have one grade level that has higher concentrations of those subpopulations and another grade level that doesn't. You're welcome.
Can I just jump in?
Sure.
I think it was a little bit misleading when we said that this was an increase over the state average. We were actually above the state
Above the
average
state
last year as well. So the increase from, how high we were above the state average from one year to the next might only have been a couple of percentage points.
Correct. So
But
that's absolutely
I
right.
think that was just a little bit of a language
So we're absolutely, we're above the state average by 22%, but we may have only been, as Mrs. Dyer said, a few percentage points one way or the other from the prior year. It just was in this year that we were a certain percentage points over. And we could have seen that consistently over the last few years by 1 or 2 percentage points.
Any other questions for Dr. Gleason from the board? Seeing none, as per policy, we'll open the floor for public comment. This is specifically for clarifications or comments on the presentation.
Betsy Cross, I live in Wall Township. Thank you for that presentation. I think I mentioned this last year. What would be helpful is to put page numbers on it, because it's very difficult to now ask my questions, and I had to write quickly in pen the page numbers. Can you go to page 18? That's all right. Can you go to page 18 on the slide, please? My son's in the 9th grade now, so I was kind of like focused on the 8th grade information. So page 18 and page 22, do those numbers, how do they match up?
Ms. Keeter, can you put the slide up? Thank you.
That's the one. Yeah, like look at the 8th grade. And now look at page 22. So the percentage of 69% relates to what on page 18?
Yeah, if you could just go back for a minute. Ms. Cross, could you just
You want me to show
repeat
you?
your question? If you could just repeat your question. Okay. 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 Okay, yeah, I have to go over and check that. There's a 4% discrepancy of 69% on the graph and
Right.
65% on the report. So I'll double check that.
Okay, I think there's a few of those. All right. When I'm looking at the high school, now my son's in the high school. So Algebra 1, only 43%. All right, let me get the page number now. Only 43% either had 4s or 5s. And, you know, that just gets me a little bit nervous. I mean, those numbers are really low. And in geometry, only 34% in the high school passed. I mean, these are alarmingly low numbers. And then in intermediate, yeah, so something doesn't seem right with this slide. Look at page, it's the slide that has algebra and geometry on it.
Okay, thank you.
Like geometry, 100% passed in the prior 3 years and only 82% passed this year. It doesn't seem right, because it looks like not 100% passed last year, because you had the percentage in there for 17. Okay, let me tell you what page. Okay, go to page 58. Yeah, so 58, right? So you have 100, 100, 100 in that last column. But now go back to your geometry page. And you show geometry 17, only 41% passed. So how could it be 100?
Okay.
But I mean, I find quite a few problems with this exhibit.
Okay.
So
I'll have
maybe
to
we
check, I'll
can-
check the graphs. Yeah.
Yeah, something's not matching
The
up.
graphs were generated from the reports, so I would look first
Yeah.
at this, and then I'll double-check the
Yeah,
graphs.
I think there's a fair amount that are off.
Thank you.
But I mean, if you could just go over, like, I'm just concerned with the math scores.
Let's go back to the actual data report there rather than the graph.
Yeah.
I'll check those.
Right, so, I mean, if those are the numbers, I'm just very concerned. Language arts, in third, fourth, and fifth, they went down in each year, third, fourth, and fifth. I'd be concerned that, or the procedures that you're putting in place, if you're just following last year, may not be working, because instead of your scores going up, they actually went down for third, fourth, and fifth grade. So I think you might need to look that over. Math,
Ms. Cross, your time is up, so if you have
well, I
one
mean,
more
you
statement.
were trying to find pages here. I'd like to go over this. I think it's important.
Ms. Cross, your time is up. If you want to address this again at the end of the meeting, you may.
Yeah, I think the board really should have looked this over, because there were a lot of mistakes in this exhibit, and nobody seemed to point it out. So it's kind of embarrassing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Tom Lopez, Wall Township. Just want to comment on the AP test results. I know I was at a board meeting, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, when you guys were trying to figure out what can we do, why are people not taking tests, and I think we must have made some, you made some modifications. I think some of it had to do with subsidizing a test, and I think the results are terrific. You look at nearly 300 kids a year passing AP tests. It results in significant savings to those families. I know someone who passed got a 4 in a Spanish AP test. That got them 3 courses credit in college. Passing a BC calculus, got calculus 1 and 2 waived for some kids. When you talk about a Rutgers, even where in the state tuition is $400 a credit, getting 12 credits, that's nearly $5,000. If you talk about an out-of-state school or a private school where tuition is $1,000 a credit, 12 credits is $12,000 savings. That's terrific, and hopefully we'll continue to see good results there. And it not only benefits the kids who are taking the test, but since I believe AP results are one of the measuring sticks for high school, it makes the high school look better, and it benefits all kids who are trying to get into college. So hopefully we can continue to see good results in those AP tests, because it can save parents quite a bit of money. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Andrew Tufts, Seagirt Estates. I'm sorry to be bundled up, but I am freezing. To continue the testing conversation and knocking the pen on the ground, I understand the numbers and why we get concerned about numbers decreasing, but I think we're on the right track with improving those numbers, because I'm not concerned that high school kids aren't doing so well on the park compared to how they did as 3rd graders or 6th graders, because from my experience with high school kids, and it's probably not Ms. Kernis or Mr. Roberts, because you guys were probably like me. I'm sorry? No, you guys were probably like me, and you had a test and you did the best you could just because that's what you did. But my high school kids, they don't care about park. Some of them are going to take it and do a great job, and it's not a high school requirement across the board. So if there's no incentive for a test, that 3 hours, sometimes I've seen half my population put their heads down and close their Chromebooks after 20 minutes. And that's sad to say, but I'm sure it's not just happening in my district. Because if there is no incentive, then why is the kid going to try so hard? It's the AP test where they're going to put forth the best effort. It's the SAT and the ACT. So if we are moving, and this is proposed, to adopt these end-of-course tests like New York has been doing for years, and New Jersey, at least as far as math is concerned, has always seemed to be just behind what New York is doing. I think it's a great idea. It's one test they got to take. It's like taking an AP test. They got to sit down and say, all right, I'm proficient in Algebra 1, I'm proficient in geometry, and they're done with it. It's like earning a badge on Fortnite or something like that. They got it, they're done, and they're across the board. Now they're like other states. AP exams, same boat. That's a better measure for colleges and for us comparing ourselves to other schools, because that's a test that all kids seem to care about. I'll try to go quick here. Thank you for posting everything ahead of time so that I could get this stuff and kind of be prepared, but I did not look at these numbers, and I think that's a valid point, that we do make sure the numbers are coherent, because I know working with Excel or X sheets, you don't know where numbers come from sometimes. Let's see. The one-to-one initiative, we just did that in my district, and it is kind of terrifying, but also really great for the kids. I just want to say, as a parent, we use Go Guardian. That is a service. I'm not sure if they use it at the elementary level or at any of the levels where there are so many devices in the schools, but we have Go Guardian and LandGuard, and that allows the teacher to keep track of the devices and what the students are doing on the devices. It allows them to control the number of tabs that students are able to open on their devices. And so to kind of assuage and kind of ease some of the parental fear of what are these kids going to be doing with their devices, there are things in place that allow teachers to keep track of what's happening, and I hope we are going to look into using some sort of product like that, so we are keeping track and making sure kids are on task and doing things like Newsela. I've seen my art teachers use Newsela, and they really like it. I haven't used it in my math classes yet, but it looks really great. It allows the kids to read and process information at their own time. It allows the teacher to take a step back and really work one-on-one with other kids while other kids are working individually and don't need the teacher intervention. And so I think that's a great step we're taking. I think that was a good point you made, Mr. Adonisio, to highlight with the elementary schools that it is kind of random, that some kids are doing better or some grades are doing better in different schools. So it doesn't seem like Old Mill's always doing better than West Belmar. If that's not what the data is showing, then that's great. It's just random that this school did better than another in a given year. And that's a great point by Mr. Lopez about increasing the opportunity for AP tests so that we can save on college, because college savings is ridiculous. I got to pay for it in 8 years. I'm not looking forward to that, but I only have one to pay for, so I am thankful for that. But it is great that we are continuing to increase the opportunities for AP tests, because that's a good thing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the floor for commenting on Dr. Gleason's report. Thank you so much. At this time, we can have the student representative report. Welcome, Molly Kernis and David Roberts.
Are we good? Okay. Good evening, Mrs. Zawodniak, Superintendent Dwyer, and members of the Board of Education. October has been a busy month for Wall High School students. The sophomores and juniors took their PSATs this past Wednesday, and the seniors finished up their last SATs before the November 1st deadline for early action. Students and teachers took part in the Week of Respect. Each student and teacher helped decorate their doors, showing the best themes of kindness, tolerance, and integrity. The results of the door decorating competition will be announced tomorrow. The month of pink for breast cancer awareness continued with girls volleyball, field hockey, and football, representing the colors in their home games. Pre-sales for pink out shirts were over 400, and under the Friday night lights, it was great to see the community come out to support the football team in finding a cure.
In addition to Pink Out games, the seniors are being celebrated for their 4 years of hard work in sports. On Saturday, field hockey defeated Toms River North 3-2 in the first round of shore conference. Field hockey won over St. John Vianney on their Senior Day 2 on the 9th, with Emma Bant and Zelda Wagner scoring goals. Soccer shut out Raritan 4-0 last Monday, with seniors Ryan Walsh scoring and great plays by Riley Powers and Johnny Volpe. Girls defeated Ocean 5-1 on the 10th, with seniors Remy Reinhardt, Courtney Carduner, and Julia Douglas all scoring goals. Tennis, track, and gymnastics all celebrated their seniors as well over the last month. Wall High School is very excited for Pep Week to start on Monday. It is a time for the students to come together and compete for their class. Hopefully, Dave and I will be announcing another win for the class of 2019 at next month's meeting. Once again, thank you, Mrs. Zawodniak, Superintendent Dyer, and the members of the Board of Education for allowing us to speak on behalf of Wall High School.
Thank you very much, Molly and David. Are there any questions for our student reps from board members? No? Seeing none. If you have homework to do, you surely may be dismissed. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to acknowledge the Students of the Month and Knights of the Week. So at Wall High School, Students of the Month were, in grade 9, Kylie Hubbard, grade 10, Matthew Farrell, grade 11, Julia Fisher, and grade 12, Molly Kernis. Congratulations, Molly Kernis, and have a good evening. And the Knights of the Week were in 9th grade for the week of September 7th was Ty Giblin. 9th grade, also September 7th, was Joseph Gregoria. 9th grade, September 7th, Ronan O'Byrne. 9th grade, September 7th, Mika Rubin. 9th grade, September 7th, John Patrick Sweeney. 9th grade, September 7th, Daniel Wheeler. And 9th grade for September 14th, Marcus Alemo. In 12th grade for the week of September 21st was Brady Scott. 10th grade, Daniel Grunwald for the week of the 21st. And 12th grader for the week of the 28th was Andrew Thyssen. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the names, but congratulations to those students. At this time, I have an update on the progress toward the achievement of our board goals for this year and professional development improvement plan for board members. So if you see on the school website, our goal number 1 is to ensure implementation and monitoring of the strategic plan that covers the 2017-2022 school years. And the status of our progress is that the board has requested that the superintendent provide updates on the implementation of the strategic plan twice during the year. The first update is being provided this evening in the superintendent's update on the district goals. Board meeting agendas contain a notation linking agenda items to the strategic plan, and committee reports now contain a section where linkage of committee agenda items to the strategic plan is indicated. It's anticipated that the Strategic Planning Committee will meet in November or December, and again toward the end of the school year, depending upon the committee members' schedules. Board goal number 2 is negotiate and settle contracts with bargaining units and non-represented personnel by March prior to finalizing the budget for the 2019-2020 school year. And the status of where we are as of now is that the negotiations committee has been meeting on a regular basis since August to prepare for upcoming negotiations with the WTEA. Board goal number 3 is to work with the superintendent to ensure that all students are academically challenged in ways that are aligned with their potential and interests, and develop plans for implementation of programs and courses in September 2019 and beyond. And where we stand now is that the investigation into programs and curricula in career and technical education is being done by the district administration, who will report back to the curriculum committee. The administration is also in the process of developing student surveys, and it is anticipated that the superintendent will provide a report in January that analyzes data with regard to student interest surveys and course offerings at Wall High School as compared to high school offerings at vocational, private, and other area public schools. As stated in the superintendent's update on the district goals that you will be hearing shortly, the supervisor of music has begun research on the Fine and Performing Arts Academy with a music focus for the first year. The administration is also investigating options for a future teachers academy. The administration is working on developing a career pathways brochure, and it is anticipated that a report will be provided in June. Board goal number 4 is to continue to investigate and implement short and long-term solutions for student transportation. The board has entered into a shared services agreement with the Howell Township Board of Education to locate the Transportation Department and bus fleet at the Howell Township Board of Education School Transportation Facility. This agreement is for a period of 10 years with a renewal option for an additional 10 years. However, either party may terminate the agreement with a minimum of 2 calendar years notification. Although the board remains interested in a permanent location, having entered into this agreement with Howell, the board will no longer be considering the Bailey's Corner Road site. In an effort to find a permanent solution, the board remains interested in exploring a potential land swap or other arrangement with the township, and this should be an ongoing agenda topic for our Board of Education Township Liaison Committee. As a result of the feasibility study by Edwards Engineering, the board has determined not to further pursue the option of returning the Transportation Department to the Wall High School location. The board remains interested in a permanent transportation site and is open to considering any suitable option for a permanent or more advantageous location. Having entered into the shared services agreement with the Howell Board of Education gives the board time to pursue potential options. Board goal number 5. Ensure that members of the Board of Education receive training on an ongoing basis to enhance their performance and effectiveness as Board of Education members. The board had its goal-setting retreat at the end of July, and as far as other training, there were no programs offered by the New Jersey School Boards Association in July. However, NJSBA offers over 50 seminars between August and mid-June. The Monmouth County School Boards Association also offers professional development opportunities throughout the school year. The next opportunity for professional development for board members is the annual workshop hosted by NJSBA from October 22nd to the 25th. Seminars are offered covering a wide variety of topics, including but not limited to governance, ethics, finance, school law, technology, the arts, current trends in education, and innovative ideas. Attending these seminars, networking with board members from other districts, and obtaining information from vendors who provide various products, programs, and services that may be of benefit to the board and the district are great ways for board members to enhance their performance and effectiveness. The board receives numerous emails from NJSBA and the Monmouth County School Boards Association program on a regular basis. Yesterday, in fact, the board received a brochure from the NJSBA in the mail informing about seminars, webinars, and county programs. Participation, with the exception of the mandated state training, participation in these other programs are voluntary, and board members should make every effort to attend some of them. The board has a new board member orientation committee and mentorship program in place that I anticipate will continue throughout the school year. And the superintendent has provided a Google Calendar and populates it on an ongoing basis with meetings and event dates as appropriate. Training dates will be added along with a recommended timeline for board tasks for the remainder of the school year. Board goal number 6, plan for potential changes in enrollment. In the next couple of months, the Personnel Committee anticipates receiving information from administration about a possible demographic study. Programs have changed since last analysis of the functional capacity of the buildings, and therefore in the next couple of months, the administration should be providing the Personnel Committee with information about commissioning a functional capacity analysis. To keep informed about future housing developments, the board has ongoing communication with the governing body of Wall Township through our liaison committee and with board representation on the Citizens Committee on Affordable Housing. review of staffing and planning for staffing is an ongoing process that will be addressed through the budget process. And goal number 7, the board will review the long-range facilities plan and comprehensive maintenance plan and develop and maintain a prioritized list of facility improvements to be reported out on an ongoing basis. The administration is preparing a report of the age and condition of current building systems to be shared with the Finance and Facilities Committee when completed. The board will review the updated long-range facilities plan as soon as it is completed and provided by the administration. Pardon me. The comprehensive maintenance plan is on the agenda tonight for the board's consideration. Once approved, the comprehensive maintenance plan will be a regular item on the Finance and Facilities Committee agenda. And that is the status of the board's progress to the achievement of their goals. Any questions from board members? Okay. And now I'd like to offer some response to prior public comment. There were some questions about the transportation compound. I think I've addressed them. In terms of the shared agreement with Howell Township, the portion of the facility that benefits both Howell and Wall Township are going to be shared. As far as the expense goes, the portions that benefit solely Wall Township will be the responsibility of Wall Township to pay for. We have again, we have a 10-year agreement with a 10-year renewal and with the option of a 2-year notification for intent not to pursue. I think that's a very good arrangement. It gives the board at minimum 2 years to find to find a permanent location for that site. And the contract was approved by the county superintendent and reviewed by our board attorney. There was also a question raised about comp time, and our school employees, with the exception of guidance as per their contract, the rest of our employees do not have comp time. And the forensic audit report seems to be misrepresented on numerous occasions, and the forensic audit report found no examples of willful misrepresentation of absences by employees. There were several occasions where an employee's presence could not be substantiated, but that's a little bit different than saying that an employee was not on site. And as I have stated before, that it is not the expectation that an employee work from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. They're certainly entitled to have at least a lunch and some other personal time within those hours. There was a comment made about our harassment, intimidation, and bullying and violence and vandalism report, and there was some increase in incidences, and it seems that the area of greatest increase were in terms of elementary school students making threats via social media, et cetera. Am I correct in that? Okay. And I think that is, actually, let me add to that. There was also one comment about board members receiving information at a January 16th meeting and how that was either inappropriate or undesirable. Well, that January 16th meeting happened to have been a meeting which was a committee of the whole, so essentially it was a committee meeting held in front of the public, and so for the board to receive information at that, handed out to them at that type of meeting is totally appropriate, and I think that concludes my response to public comment. Any comments or questions from board members?
Public comment on your comment.
This is
When
not.
it gets to public comment.
Well, this is
When
all
it gets to
just
public
regarding-
comment.
This is all just regarding last month. You should have a separate.
Excuse me.
Stop.
Miss Cross, do not call out from the audience, please. You have a time to come to the podium, and that's what it's meant for. Mr. Smythe, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
To expand on the response, because I know those were the notes that were prepared and put on the website to go along with the minutes as a follow-up to the comments or questions, although that is a time-consuming process, and there were some other comments made during public comment that I would like to address or correct, or expanding on the January 16th audio. The suggestion, and this came from the comments from Ms. Cross, public comment, that she listened to January 16th audio, that there are a lot of problems, and suggested everyone go back and listen. Commented that Brian Smythe handed the board the Bailey's Corner proposal. Stated that Mr. Smythe said that he did a feasibility study, but when she opened them, they did not come back. She stated it was just a pricing sheet. I encourage anyone who's interested to go back and listen to the audio. What I said was we, meaning the district including the Board of Education, had a feasibility study done. And again, this was a workshop meeting, so it was a discussion of the board, and the discussion was on the transportation facility. I said we had a feasibility study done, and I did not say that I did a feasibility study. Again, a consultant hired by the Board of Education did a feasibility study, not myself. What I did say, that the handout that I provided was a schedule of proposed costs provided by the consultants. I did not say that I was handing out a feasibility study. That was one piece of the feasibility study that was provided to the board at the workshop, because that was the only piece of documentation received by the consultant at that time. The feasibility study that was conducted by the consultant was completed in March, and at that time, the feasibility study was provided to the board and was also made available on the website, and it is still there on the website today. With regard to the pricing that was provided that night of $2.5 million, again, from the consultant, the comment was that I stated that the pricing included the widening of the road, traffic control, and paving. She also stated that we now know that that is not true, and it would cost around $5 million, and commented that I was way off. Again, I did not conduct a feasibility study. It was conducted by a consultant. However, Ms. Cross is incorrect. The schedule of proposed costs provided by the consultant did include the widening of the road of Bailey's Corner Road, the paving and traffic control of Bailey's Corner Road in front of the entrance that we were constructing, or in front of the proposed bus yard. That was included in the consultant's cost estimate. I commented on last month with regard to the comment that moving over $800,000 into the reserve account, or specifically the emergency reserve account, would lower the tax levy, but would also lower the premiums for employees, somewhat to insinuate that the reason why I'm doing this, or want to do this, is so that I lower the cost to myself and to the district employees on their cost of paying for their health benefits. That is incorrect. The transfer of funds to the emergency reserve will allow the district to use those funds to budget for health benefit costs in future budgets, thereby allowing or reducing the amount and possibly the entire availability of health benefit adjustments or waivers that could be otherwise used to increase the tax levy above the 2%. The transfer or the future use of those funds in subsequent budget has no bearing on the calculation of health benefit premiums, and has no bearing on the contributions employees make toward those health benefit premiums. There was a lot of comment, well, I won't talk about with regard to Xerox, but there was emails that I provided contract costs. They do not add up. Requests and answers in writing as to why contract costs don't add up. However, no specifics were provided, so they can't be addressed, other than I would say that they do add up. The contract cost is different than the detailed contract cost stated. It was stated that Mr. Smythe uses the wrong numbers. When he fills in the detailed contract cost, further commented that I provide the sheet of costs, and then with regard to, sometimes it's hard to follow, the amounts on the detailed contract costs do not match the other numbers that were provided. Commented that all the years she looked at for the past 4 years, all the amounts were wrong, whether it's health, whether it's prescription. Again, no specifics, so it's hard to specifically address, although it sounds as though if you're comparing the premium costs that we use with regard to our health benefits, and you're comparing the costs that go on a detailed statement of contract costs that only include the cost of the district, then you're not factoring in that the employee contributes toward health benefit costs, or that on my detailed statement of costs, I have to factor in that I spend over $10,000 for those health benefits. So if you're comparing the premium costs based on the premium rates, and then you're trying to equate them to a detailed statement of costs, they're not going to match up, because you'd have to deduct the $10,000 to $11,000 that the employer, in this case myself, would contribute toward those health benefits. With regard to the board's review and approval of Mr. Smythe's contract, doesn't know how Mr. Smythe has a date here for 18-19, which was the 2018-19 contract detailed statement of cost, that it was revised January 5th, 2015, commenting that this is so sloppy. The revision date on the form is the revision date for the form, and the form is generated by the Department of Education. It has nothing to do with the information that is entered on the form. The revision date of January 2015 has been on the form since January 2015 and has been on each one of the detailed statement costs since that time. So it wasn't just the 18-19 school year, it was 17-18, 16-17, 15-16, maybe not 15-16 because it was apparently revised by the state in January 2015. With regard to a lot of comments with regard to Xerox, question why Mr. Smythe didn't return phone calls or respond to emails to the representative from Xerox. I'm not sure why this is of a major concern, why I didn't return the phone call or provide a response to a sales rep for a vendor. However, the email that was referenced, that the sales rep referenced that I did not respond to, the sales rep did indicate in that letter that she did receive my cancellation notice. So the email that I apparently did not respond to states that the sales rep received my letter stating that we are canceling all Xerox equipment contracts as of July 1st, 2011. Based on that piece of correspondence, I didn't think there was any additional correspondence or clarification needed to provide to the sales rep. I thought the correspondence I provided was sufficient. There's also the comment that the Xerox, or the lady from Xerox, but it's the sales rep from Xerox, emailed me saying that she hopes you get the good people on the board. The email said that I hope your budget passes and that you get the good people on the board. I understand that to insinuate that I had a cozy relationship with the sales rep from Xerox, the same one that I didn't return the phone calls to or respond to emails to, but that same email was sent to at least 30 other school districts in Monmouth County. All the recipients are on the email that was referenced, and because of the date of it, it dates back, I don't know, 10 years. So I wasn't able to actually pull up the email, but I believe if it was expanded, it probably was sent to all the school districts in Monmouth County, but there were 30 other school districts that were represented on the email, so it was not specific to me. With regard to another comment that Mr. Smythe said was a lie, commented that she looked at the Xerox contracts and that someone from the Attorney General's office should look at the contracts, and commented that Mr. Smythe, actually it would be the district, was paying 5 times as much for 5 years. I don't know what the reference of 5 times is being compared to. However, based on a previous complaint that was filed with the Office of Fiscal Accountability and Compliance, a review of the Xerox contract was conducted by that office, and as well as the early termination fee. They did review. The findings were reported at a public meeting and are available on the website still today. The findings were that there appears to be no violation of educational law or regulation, and that the buyout of the Xerox contract in 2011 was also board approved, citing a substantial savings switching to another vendor. There was no action required by the Board of Education based on the Office of Fiscal Accountability and Compliance review of those Xerox contracts from 2001, I believe, through 2011. They reviewed contracts. Again, that was based on a complaint filed in 2014. I believe that's when the investigation was done. With regard to the comment that Mr. Smythe has saved the district copier costs or saved money from when we use Xerox is a lie. Just to review some numbers with regard to our copier costs. In 2006, 2007 school year, and I apologize because we're going back 11 years, our copier costs were $396,000 per year. My first year as the business administrator, because I took over in April of 2007, in the 07-08 school year, our copy costs were $490,000 per year. They were $557,000 the following year. In 2008-09, $486 in 9-10. It came down a little bit and came down again. For 2010-11, they were $432,000. That was at the time I stopped responding to phone calls or emails from the Xerox because I was soliciting a proposal from Xerox as well as another vendor. I asked for those proposals to be submitted in writing, which they did. The district decided to go with another vendor. The Xerox contracts were scheduled to end during the 2010-11 school year. It was actually in the middle of the year. As I said, we solicited quotes from Xerox and another vendor for a 5-year purchase agreement for all the copiers in the district. Can't be held to the number, but I believe at the time there were 34 copiers in the district. In the 2011-12, the district paid $399,000 for copier costs, which was less than the prior year of $432,000. And that amount includes the buyout or the termination clause we had with Xerox for $105,000. The same buyout that was investigated by OFAC, or the Office of Fiscal Accountability and Compliance. So even paying off the early termination fee and going with a new vendor, we saved money from the prior year with Xerox. The additional benefit is that we changed out the copiers over the summer instead of the new school year. So the physical change out was done over the summer, or actually the beginning of the school year in September, as well as the software and the training for the staff. So from 2012-13 to the last of the 5-year agreement, which was in 2015-16, the district paid $283,000, $301,000, $284,000, and $317,000 respectively. And that is on average about $136,000 per year less than the last year of the Xerox contract. After that 5-year agreement was over, after 15-16, so for the 16-17, I solicited quotes from multiple vendors for our copiers. We also did a survey of the district staff that use the copiers to get their opinion on the copiers themselves, the current condition, as well as the service provided by the vendor. That survey was very beneficial and was considered in reviewing the quotations provided by the different vendors, and it was the different manufacturers of copiers that submitted quotations. For the first year of that new contract of the 16-17 school year, our copier costs were $138,429. And based on the survey, not all the copiers had to be replaced. The majority of them were. But the current annual costs are $157,000 less than the annual cost of the previous contract. And it's $290,000 less per year than the last year of the Xerox contract in 2010-11. So there has been significant cost savings with regard to the copier costs, leaving Xerox, bringing in another vendor for competition, and then doing it again 5 years later and bringing in every manufacturer of copiers that we could identify that we thought would be responsive to our quotes. They submitted, and now our costs have gone from almost $500,000 down to about $140,000 to $150,000 per year. So hopefully that addresses the Xerox concerns with regard to the district. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll move to the superintendent's update.
Thank you. Good evening. First, I'll just report on the district goals. The district goals for 18-19 are the same goals that are in the strategic plan, which are 5-year goals. The first 3 goals all have to do with student success. Goal number 1 is specific to a curriculum plan. And in year 2, our activities were to continue professional developments on standard-based learning, assessment, and reporting, and to continue relationships with area businesses and organizations and develop opportunities to enrich the curriculum. As of October, we've had 3 professional development days so far this year. We have included standards-based learning, assessment, and reporting during those in-service days, and that has also been agenda items at grade level meetings, curriculum meetings, and department meetings. The district is partnering with regard to area businesses. Something new in that endeavor is that we are partnering with the Monmouth County judicial system and will be part of the One Judge program. We will be paired with a judge who will visit our schools and speak to classes or larger groups of students. We, of course, continue our relationship with the businesses that are part of our advisory boards for the Wall Finance and Business Academy and the Pre-Engineering Academy and the Service and Leadership Academy. With regard to student success goal 2, that has to do with meeting the needs of the diverse learners in the school district, and you heard Dr. Gleason talk about many of the intervention programs that we are working on in this year. But we also wanted to focus on academic, social, and emotional learning. In year 2, the activities were to administer district parent and student surveys, to develop a digital program resource guide, continue to monitor, evaluate, and publicize the Crimson College Academy, begin development of a fine and performing arts academy with a music focus, and explore opportunities to integrate K-12 social emotional learning experiences within the curriculum. As of October, those surveys are being created, and the CTAC has been involved in providing input into the creation of those surveys. The digital resource guide is an administrative goal for a few administrators this year. So they'll be working on that throughout the year, but that work has started as part of goal setting. Academies are promoted at upcoming meetings and information nights, and one of those meetings was today with the 8th grade students at the intermediate school. The supervisor of music was part of that meeting with the 8th graders and had them contribute towards to the development of that academy by soliciting their input today via a Google form. And social and emotional learning experiences are indeed a priority in the district. The schools had many interesting activities for International Peace Day, which was in September, and the Week of Respect, which just concluded. At the end of October, we'll be hosting Challenge Day at the high school, and about 100 students will participate in that event. Our third student success goal has to do with ensuring that all students have access to technology that's needed to enhance critical thinking, communication, creativity, and collaboration. In year 2, our activities involved continuation of the CTAC, the Curriculum and Technology Advisory Council, continued articulation between the Office of Curriculum and Instruction and the Technology Department, and to continue to provide professional development for administrators and teachers to enhance knowledge of new technologies that support instruction and learning. All of that is happening as of October. The CTAC is continuing. The directors meet regularly. We have one-to-one Chromebooks, grades 2 to 8, and we have Chromebooks or computers available for all students at the high school throughout the day. We're in the process of writing a grant application for AP Computer Science, and the intermediate school was just awarded a $10,000 grant from Ocean First Bank for the development of a robotics lab. Representatives from Ocean First will be at the board meeting next month to make that presentation. We had one finance and facilities goal, and the year 2 activities for that were to create a F&F advisory committee, continue to explore creative ways to add sources of revenue, continue to investigate cost-saving measures, continue to educate the community and communicate the district vision and costs to execute that vision to the stakeholders, revise the long-range facilities plan and comprehensive maintenance plan, and to create a prioritized list of projects for budget consideration. As of October, the F&F Advisory Committee has been formed and will be meeting soon. We are exploring creative ways to add sources of revenue. That's an ongoing goal. The district just entered into 2 shared service agreements. One agreement is a cost savings measure, and the other is a small source of revenue. With regard to educating the community about our costs, we use the website and social media, and to educate the community about the district and school initiatives and events related to the district vision and mission and the cost to implement same. The long-range facilities plan, including a prioritized list of projects for budget consideration, was discussed at the last F&F meeting, and the comprehensive maintenance plan is on the agenda for tonight. With regard to community outreach, this was our 5th goal. The activities were to continue to utilize the website and the Facebook page, continue to utilize Martin Luther King Day of Service as a mechanism for giving back to the community, explore ways to engage with alumni, continue parent engagement workshops, special education presentations, and the ESL Parent Advisory, and to develop a comprehensive district communication plan. We use the website and Facebook page on a daily basis. We are planning the MLK Day of Service for January. We created an alumni registry, and over 130 alumni have responded. We now email them with information about the district. The ESL Parent Advisory has had their first meeting already this year, and we had at least one parent engagement workshop at the intermediate school, and that was a Google workshop. The comprehensive communication plan is being developed and was discussed with the PR committee last month. The last goal was a school climate and culture goal, and the year 2 activities included to continue K-12 interactions and interactions with community stakeholders, and to continue to increase student and teacher recognition. We did recognize staff at the September meeting for their participation in a committee this summer, and we will be recognizing additional staff at the November meeting. That includes the teachers who applied for Ocean First grants and the award-winning grant application. That's my update on district goals. With regard to any other updates for the board, I already mentioned the Ocean First grant, which we're very happy about. That's the 2nd year in the row that we have been the fortunate recipients of a grant from Ocean First. The Crimson Knights Foundation is having a fundraising event on November 14th where they will be recognizing 1 alumni, 1 community member, and 1 district employee. The district employee that is being honored at the gala is our own Les Hollander. So I encourage all of you to come out to the Spring Lake Manor on November 14th and support Les, and as well as our alumni and our community, and also support the Crimson Knights Foundation. This fundraising event will contribute towards their next project, which is the high school auditorium. And they're looking to donate some money so that we can upgrade the lighting in the auditorium. I also want to mention to the board that last year we had some students come to the board to present their STEM projects that they had entered into the school board's competition. We have 3 teams that will be presenting next week at the school board's workshop in the finals. So that is on Tuesday. We have students from the intermediate school, 2 teams from the intermediate school, and 1 team from the high school that will go to Atlantic City with their advisors, and they will be competing in the STEAM Challenge. And so I hope we are able to report on their success at the November board meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Dyer. Any questions for Mrs. Dyer from the board? Seeing none, we'll move to the Board of Education updates. Mrs. Connolly, do you have anything for legislative?
No, there were no legislative updates provided this month.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. MacArthur attended the Wall Community Alliance meeting as the liaison, and I attended the meeting as well. That's the Wall Community Alliance for the Prevention of Drug and Alcohol Abuse, which took place on October 4th at 7 p.m. Topics included a police department report from Lieutenant Mike Hurden. He talked about the Safe Schools Initiative, where the police have a presence at schools at arrival and dismissal times, and they follow school buses to make sure that the general public are observing safe driving practices when they're around the buses. He also talked about the Challenge Day program that the officers are involved in, and that is scheduled for October 31st at Wall High School. The Delta Club had a representative give an overview of Delta Club activities, and they included volunteering and distributing door hangers for Knockout Opioid Abuse Day. They volunteered at the Wall Alliance Kids Day America event. They'll be hosting the Wheel of Wellness and Wheel of Misfortune on Wednesdays at the intermediate school, and I got that wrong. So it's Wednesdays at the intermediate school and Fridays at the high school. They participated in the Week of Respect program at Wall High School that was mentioned in the Board of Ed student rep report. Kids Day America was on September 22nd. It was a great day. They talked about project graduation, which is the 28th annual project graduation, scheduled for June 20th, 2019, and the first parent meeting is planned for November 19th. They discussed back to school night. They had packets prepared with information about programs for those struggling with drugs and alcohol, and they were distributed to parents at back to school nights at Wall Intermediate School and Wall High School, and the Alliance was very appreciative of the partnership with the school district. They talked about Red Ribbon Week, and there are planned activities for the week of October 23rd to the 31st at Wall High School. They talked about the BABES program and the fact that we have a new facilitator for the program, and I believe her name is Jill Tabachman. I'm sorry if I don't know how to pronounce that exactly. They discussed the Heroes and Cool Kids program, which is sponsored by the Alliance, and that program is about to start. It's a leadership and mentoring program where high school kids mentor elementary and intermediate school kids. They discussed the holiday pancake breakfast, so mark your calendars for December 15th. They had a Prevention Coalition meeting, which took place on October 10th. And on November 15th, they'll look for a program at the Algonquin Theater called Suicide: The Ripple Effect. And that was the sum total of their agenda. Their meetings are the first Thursday of the month, and the next meeting will be on November 1st at 7 p.m. at the meeting room on the lower level at the municipal building, and all are welcome to attend, both board and community members. Submitted by myself on behalf of Mike MacArthur, the liaison. Next, I have an update from the Board of Education and Wall Township Liaison Committee. We met on October 2nd at 8:30 a.m. In attendance were Mayor Timothy Farrell, Township Administrator Jeffrey Bertrand, Business Administrator Brian Smythe, Board members Ralph Adonisio, Dory Malloy, and myself. Topics included benches that were donated and finally picked up by the district. We discussed the school transportation department and bus fleet parking situation, and had followed up a discussion with them, letting them know about the agreement with HEL and explained the terms of the agreement to them. Both entities seem to be in agreement that the arrangement with HEL is a positive thing and that finding a suitable permanent location is also desirable, and we will continue to keep this as a topic of conversation in future meetings. We talked about affordable housing. Mr. Bertrand gave a brief overview of where the township stands in the process. We talked about the West Belmar School front entrance and asked if the township would be interested and have the expertise to assist in refurbishing the old entrance to the school. It was suggested that Mr. Romano call to explain what was needed to determine if repairs could be made through shared services with the town. We discussed the Wall High School generator replacement project and inquired if the town could provide assistance with a temporary generator in the off chance that one might be needed during the project. Respectfully submitted, myself. Anybody have any questions about those updates? Okay. Moving forward, Mrs. Connolly, can we have the policy committee report, please?
The policy committee met on October the 2nd at 6:50 in the evening, and the meeting lasted until 8 o'clock. It was one of our more brief policy meetings. We had no items for first reading, but we had moved an item from discussion to first reading. So R2624 regarding grading systems, the committee discussed it and noted that it needed to be updated to reflect the student handbook. After the meeting, work was done to align this regulation to the handbook, and the committee received an updated regulation to review via email. I believe the committee recommends moving this regulation as amended from discussion to first reading. Then with regards to the items that were listed for second reading, we went through all of them and found a few minor errors, but there was nothing that major that needed to be changed, and so all of the items that were listed for second reading are recommended for approval upon second reading. And the committee also discussed 5230, late arrival and early dismissal, but tabled discussion of this policy until we receive greater feedback from principals and other administrators. And that is the entirety of the policy minutes as submitted by me.
Thank you. Any questions for Allison from board members? Thank you. Seeing none. The Personnel Committee met on October 9th at 5:05 p.m. till 5:30 p.m. And the committee reviewed the Human Resources report with Mrs. Dyer and recommends approval of the report at the Board of Education meeting this evening. Mrs. Dyer reviewed the administrator coverage at Wall Intermediate School, and the committee agrees with Mrs. Dyer's plan moving forward. And that was the sum total of discussion at the Personnel Committee, respectfully submitted by myself on behalf of Mr. MacArthur. Are there any questions from board members? Seeing none. Mrs. Connolly, curriculum and instruction, please.
The curriculum committee met on October the 2nd at 5 o'clock, but the entirety of our meeting was Dr. Gleason's full presentation on student achievement. It was an opportunity for the committee to sort of have a first view at it, ask questions, and help Dr. Gleason fine-tune the presentation. So that's all we did, so I don't really have much to share beyond that. There was a second item on the agenda. It was the speaking and listening standards, but we made the decision to table those until next month because we already had a relatively robust discussion and on our plates. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Any questions for Allison from the board? Seeing none, we'll move to finance and facilities. Mr. Adonisio, please.
Thank you. We met on October 1st. We started at 5:10 p.m. We ended at 7:25 p.m. In attendance was President Robin Zwaniak, Superintendent Dyer, Business Administrator Mr. Smythe, Mr. Romano for facilities, myself, and Mr. McGee. Our first thing on the agenda was the wraparound, the RAP program and the food services. Since it was the first month of school, our food service numbers weren't complete yet because we met on October 1st. Mr. Smythe informed us that we had one less school day this year compared to last year. When those reports are put out, that's kind of important. When you're comparing the numbers from year to year, you know, the number of days has a huge impact on sales. Those numbers will be provided to us once they are completed. Ms. Dyer gave an update on the RAP program, and it's on track to meet expenses for the year. Currently, parents have 10 days to make payment if they're in arrears. If payment's not received, they can't participate in the program until their account's up to date. And doing this prevents large balances from being generated. So far this year, we started the school year with 278 students, and we finished the month with 302. The first year of the program, we had 166 students, which is 11% of the elementary enrollment. Now in year 4, we have a 19.9% of the elementary enrollment. In the mornings, we now have site coordinators, and they're certified teachers that can help with homework. So that program is growing nicely. Health benefits, our stop-loss renewal for the calendar year is up. Our healthcare broker, Brown & Brown, will be soliciting quotes for the stop-loss. Once that's completed, they will report to the F&F committee what is suggested. Also, Horizon Wellness, the district's allowed an allowance of $10,000 to use from Horizon for our wellness program. The district's going to put out a survey to staff to see what interest they have, and then a decision will be made. Contract salary breakage to date. Breakage right now is $300,000, and new hires are being finalized. Positions not necessary will be abolished, and this number will be refined and reported to the board once it's completed. Facility project updates. There was an attachment for everyone to review. Mr. Romano talked about the classroom in the high school that needs a split AC unit for a student. We had a discussion about the need for that AC unit, need for AC units in all classrooms in the district. Mr. Romano will be putting together a list, school by school, of all classrooms in the district that currently have AC and the ones that don't. To put a split system in that classroom, it would cost approximately $4,500. For the time being, the classroom at the high school will not be done, and the administration will make other accommodations for the student until we develop a plan for air conditioning. The high school generator permit will be issued on October 15th, and work will begin on the 16th. The estimated completion date is February of 2019. Also, on October 3rd, the boiler at Old Mill School that was replaced part of Phase 2 was scheduled to be turned on, and I guess we'll get an update on that next month or maybe tonight, if everything went well. Mr. Romano is still reaching out to contractors for the work to be completed at the West Belmar School entrance. Mr. Romano did receive a quote for $90,000 for repairs, but it was suggested that we look to see if the town, if there was a possibility of doing shared services with the town, which we had a discussion, and Mr. Romano was going to reach out to Public Works to see if that was a possibility. And the air conditioning unit at the administrative office is being replaced over Teachers Convention at a cost of $11,240. Long-range facilities plan. We had a discussion on using money that was budgeted for the bus compound to fund other projects in the district that require repair or replacement. Mr. Smythe provided the committee with a long-range facility plan. Mr. Romano is meeting with the building principals to see what needs to be priority so the plan can be developed. The plan will have costs associated with different recommendations when possible for review. A discussion took place on the track and looking into the possibility of doing the track as part of the project. This is going to be a topic for the F&F Advisory Committee when they meet. The F&F Committee is recommending that the board use the money that was going to be used for the bus compound based on pricing and recommendations from the administration for other projects that will be determined necessary for the district. The student transportation facility update discussion. At the time of our F&F meeting, Howell was scheduled to approve the agreement at their business meeting on Wednesday, October 3rd. Once approved, the process of getting pricing on improvements that will be needed will start, and such as office trailers for the staff as an example. The 2019-20 annual school budget discussion. The committee had a discussion on the school budget that is in its early stages of being developed. Mr. Smythe, as way of background, said that it would be beneficial for the budget development process if the district had settled contracts, so as part of the process, we don't have to use estimates for salary increases. Using estimates could cause the budget to have extra budgeted funds, or it could be short. There were no board action items this month. We had one thing that wasn't on the agenda. We had a discussion looking into entering into an agreement with a large athletic company to have an exclusive deal where we could get better pricing on uniforms or free uniforms. Many colleges and high schools around the country are pursuing these types of agreements. The committee will continue to investigate this with the administration. And just one side note on that, this was a recommendation brought up by Mr. McGee. He had done some research into that, so I will amend my minutes to have that in there. We didn't have anything for future agendas at this time, and it was submitted by me.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board from Mr. Adenisian? Did you want to respond to anything?
Only that I'm gonna go with no news is good news on the old mill boiler, so I'm gonna, they only contact me if there's a problem. So I'm gonna say that that went well. The one additional item that is on the agenda wasn't discussed in F&F. I apologize for that. It's, we approve this every October. I wait for the accounting or the required maintenance number for our accountant, and we have to provide a comprehensive maintenance plan and submit by the end of this month to the State Department of Education. The forms are very, very similar to the forms submitted in prior years. What we report on is actual required maintenance costs from the prior year, which would be the 17-18, what we have budgeted in the current 18-19 school year, and what we plan to budget in the 19-20 school year. It tracks what our actual expenditures are for that one group of accounts or program of accounts called required maintenance, which is actually maintenance on facilities that will improve or increase the lifespan of the buildings, and they utilize that in for districts that are applying for grant funding or debt service aid. You must demonstrate that you've invested in your buildings over the prior 10 years in order to qualify for aid, so it'll be beneficial in the future. We well exceed the minimum required amount for the required maintenance, but there's a attachment B6 on the agenda that was included in the packets on Friday. That is, in case there was any discussions, I thought this would be the time as a follow-up to the F&F committee. Yep.
Are there any questions for Mr. Smythe about the maintenance?
Can we have, Madam President and the council, can we have an order? This individual has been warned numerous occasions that this is not her Board of Education, this is not her show, this is not the Betsy Cross Board of Education. I think it's the Wall Township Public Schools Board of Education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that all of the attachments were provided for the public when the agenda was posted on Friday evening. Okay. The Public Relations Committee did not meet in October, but the Negotiations Committee did meet. We met on Tuesday, October 9th from 5:30 p.m. to, I believe, 7:30 p.m. It might have been later. In attendance were Tenant McGee, Michael MacArthur, Dory Malloy, Superintendent Dyer, and myself. And we engaged in discussion in preparation for upcoming negotiations, as we have been doing monthly since August. Any comments or questions from board members? At this time, I'll open the floor for public comment on action items only. Please come to the podium and sign in, please. And we ask, as per board policy, that you confine your comments to action items only and to 5 minutes allotted.
Betsy Cross, that exhibit that Mr. Smythe was just talking about, could you just tell me what page it's on so I can go over it? It's an action item, right? It's on B6, I think you said, Mr. Smythe? It seems kind of important because it has to do with the auditor.
It's attachment B6. It's on the agenda, and it's an attachment on the agenda labeled B6.
I don't think all the attachments are here tonight. I have up to B2 here. All right, I'd like to go over the minutes. You didn't answer a number of questions regarding the bus compound, so I'm just not sure why that hasn't happened. Can you go over what due diligence you did in?
Ms. Cross, this is for action items.
Well, aren't you approving your minutes? And in your minutes, it's not accurate, so that's why I want to go over it. So if you're going to approve the minutes, I'd like to go over my questions, and then you can answer them, and you can revise your minutes. I'd like to know what each board member, what their due diligence was in picking the Howell bus compound. Ms. Wodniak, you're up for re-election, so I think you should go over it tonight. And Mr. McGee, I'd like to know exactly what you did for the bus compound before you signed a 10-year contract.
Ms.
on
Cross,
the taxpayer's
please address your
behalf.
comments to me
Okay.
and not to individual board members or
Could you-
other members of the dais.
Okay, could you go over what estimates are for the bus compound? Paving, fencing, lighting, gas, overtime. Mr. Smythe said there wouldn't be any extra money spent on gas. So is Mr. Smythe going to pay the extra gas that comes up since the buses are now going to be in Howell? So I'm sure you've looked at that, Mr. McGee. Maybe you can answer that question.
Ms. Cross, again, please do not
Well,
address.
he keeps
please
looking
do
at
not-
me, so I thought he
please do
wanted
not
me to address it to him.
You can focus on.
Oh, okay, so you can answer that question. Okay. Did Mr. Smythe approach the Howell Board of Ed, or did the Howell Board of Ed approach Mr. Smythe? If we could know that. When I opened any documents that the board had looked at regarding the Howell bus compound, nothing came back. No pictures, no feasibility studies, nothing whatsoever. So I'm not sure what happened there. Mr. Smythe has had a long time to find a location for the bus compound. The entire district has had 19 years. So in 4 days, you're leaving again, Dory? Okay. I know everybody's rushing. You might want to get to St. Stephen's Green, so you might not want to answer the questions, but hopefully you will. The Howell Board of Ed does not actually own the land where you're renting the buses. So can you go over
What
who-
agenda item is that?
It's in the minutes.
No, it's not.
All right, maybe you can go over, Mr. Gross, that the Howell Board of Ed does not own the bus compound where you're parking our buses.
What agenda item is that?
I guess you can go and look for that. I don't know.
Okay. So maybe you should get back to the subjects that are on the agenda.
Well, the minutes. These questions were asked last month, and you refused to answer them, so I'm going over them again. Questions that Brian answered regarding his contract costs. My question was, is his contract costs were $15,000 in 14-15 and almost $100,000 more in 15-16. That was my question. Xerox, he says he was the assistant business administrator in 2006. He didn't do anything for 5 years later. So those are the questions for Xerox. What took him so long to actually try and save money? It's very disappointing. Ms. Dyer, Ms. Gleason put a lot of time into this report, and somebody should have caught these mistakes. She can't be doing everything over here. We had 9 Board of Ed members. One of them's a teacher. I mean, somebody should be looking at this. The superintendent, come on. I mean, that's an embarrassment. You have so many mistakes in here. That's why we need new Board of Ed members in January. We need board members. Maybe they have some classes on common sense. I think those are some of the things that we could actually use, because common sense would be to look over a student achievement report. We're actually a school district. I did send in a, that's what I have on that. I did want to mention the language arts scores in the high school are terrible. 9th grade, 62%, 10th grade, 47%, 11th grade, 36%. What is going on? These scores are not good. Like we say all the time,
Ms. Cross, your
you
time is up.
concentrate only on the top 20% of the kids, and the top 80% are left doing whatever. So you need to look at that.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Madam President, very quickly, I know I excused myself briefly, but I thought the first round of public comment was for action items only.
Yes, that's what it's supposed to be for.
Okay.
And we ask that the public abide by our request.
Andrew Tuff, Secret Estates. I can't help but offer my 2 or 12 cents here. I can only speak for my experience the last couple months running for the position to sit on this Board of Education, and all I've heard about, and I believe Mr. Tennant McGee and Mike MacArthur can speak to that as well, as Mr. Doro probably can, is citizens are concerned about how money is being spent. And as far as I can tell, the board spent over $100,000 paying to have Brian Smythe defend his job. And that came back with a full defense of what he's done and changes that are going to be made to the board that have, or to our practices that have already been made. He has spent 20 minutes of my time tonight defending himself over things that have happened over 10 years ago, if not longer. And I just want to know, Wall Township, since you are live, is this how you want your money to be spent? Do you want to pay this guy to defend himself and have the board spend over $100,000 to defend what has already been defended? There are OPRD requests that have been filed, over 20 since the beginning of August. At least half of them have come back with not filed properly, or this email doesn't exist, or that communication never happened. We paid that guy to spend time to put together a report that was not filed properly.
Mr. Tufts, this is for action items on the agenda.
I understand.
And there's a portion at the end of the meeting for general comments.
The trial of Brian Smythe is over. Let's move on and spend our time focusing on kids.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment.
And I just have one comment. Just to be clear, we do not know yet if there are mistakes in that report. We're just assuming based on one person. I mean, Dr. Gleason has not come back yet to say, yes, there were some errors in there, correct? Just want to put that on the record.
We'll now start with old business. May I have a motion to approve the secretary's minutes?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Anizia? Yes. Ms. Bradley? Oops, sorry.
Absent.
Ms. Connolly?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Mr. Wondrak?
Yes.
Mr. Waniak?
Yes, motion carried. Do board members have any other items for old business? Seeing none, we'll move to new business. This evening, there are no policies for first reading. May I have a motion to recommend approval of the second readings after the public hearing on the policies listed on the...
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing on the second readings on the agenda. Anybody wishing to comment on the second readings, please step up to the mic. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on the second readings. Are there any comments, questions, discussion from board members about the second readings? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Connolly?
Yes.
Mr. McGee? Yes. Ms. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Mr. Wondrak? Yes. Mr. Anizia?
Yes.
Ms. Waniak?
Yes, motion carried. There are no actions recommended at this time from the Board of Education in terms of the Board of Education report, and we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Before I ask for a motion on the superintendent's report, I did have one other update, so excuse me for going out of order. Many people who attend board meetings know that we have another community member who often attends the board meetings. She was a board member for 27 years. She's not here this evening, and in case you are not aware, Eva Applegate was in an accident about 2 weeks ago. She was hit by a car, which is public knowledge. I do want to update the community and let you know that she has been moved out of intensive care and is on the road to recovery. She's in a room now and can accept cards, but still no visitors. So if you could all keep Eva in your thoughts, we wish her a speedy recovery. At this time, I would ask for a motion to approve items A through J on the superintendent's report.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the board for Mrs. Dyer? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Mr. Wondrak? Yes. Mr. Anizio?
Yes, except J, I will abstain from the portion of the group registration that pertains to me.
Ms. Connolly?
Yes.
And Ms. Waniak?
Yes, with the exception of letter J, the professional development report, I will abstain on the portion that pertains to myself. Motion carried. And now we'll move to the business office report. Mr. Smythe?
Ask for a motion to approve items 17A through G by consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments from board members for Mr. Smythe? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Mr. Wondrak? Yes. Mr. Anizio?
Yes.
Ms. Connolly?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Waniak?
Yes, motion carried. Do board members have any other items for new business?
Madam President?
Yes.
So, recently, there was an article in the paper, September 28th, that was, I guess, a little concerning on a couple different fronts. It was, schools don't need to tell parents about students' gender choices, New Jersey policy says. And it's from the State Board of Education. Essentially, New Jersey schools must accept the student's stated gender identity, but don't have to notify parents about the student's gender decision according to new rules from the State Department of Education. So my concern with this is, one, potentially staff essentially is going to have to lie to parents if they ask a question, because the staff is prohibited from discussing what a minor decides they want to be. My second concern is, what is the liability to the district, to the employee, if something happens to that student and the parents weren't notified that changes were made within their education because that's what they wished. And then finally, which to me is the most concerning, now government feels, or the State Board of Education feels, that they can do a better job with students than parents can, and keeping parents out of the loop is not the answer. I feel this is wrong. I think it puts our staff in an uncomfortable situation. I think it does a disservice to students. I think it does a disservice to the parents by the parents not legally being able to be told of what's going on. And I wanted to have a little discussion on this because I think I feel that we should send a letter to the State Board of Education that we don't agree with this. I mean, at least I don't. I'd like to know what other people think, but I can't imagine parents not wanting to know if their child, minor child, made a decision for wanting to be called by a different name, and them not being told. I think this is concerning, and certainly I'd like to hear from Mr. Gross about the first two aspects of my concerns about any potential legal ramifications on employees by them, essentially lying because they can't tell the parents anything.
Mr. Gross, do you have any comments about this?
Well, again, with regard to liability issues, I'm not going to be discussing those liability
Okay.
issues in a public meeting. Certainly, we can have those discussions with regard to our legal advice. Certainly, the Department of Education promulgates regulations all the time and directives. My understanding, this is not a regulation, it is really just a directive. Certainly, districts are going to need to consider this. It just came out a couple of days ago, and my suggestion to this district, as it has been to all the other districts we represent, is this is an issue that should be discussed in the policy committee of the school district in order to determine how the district wants to follow or object or modify the recommendations and directives of the Department of Education.
So what they just put out, do we have to follow it now, or is it still open to?
Well, no, as a directive, we're supposed to be following it, but again, since it's not a promulgated regulation, it is not something that is the law, quote unquote, but it is a directive at this point. Now, that may change into a full regulation, which is why it really should be promulgated by each district into a policy, no different than we have for all the other student-directed initiatives and policies that we have in the district.
So, let's see, that's where I have a problem. I can't support a policy that keeps parents from knowing what's going on. That just doesn't seem right.
So, what I would suggest is that, that we have that on our list of discussion items for policy, and that you contact Mrs. Connolly with your thoughts about the matter, and if you have a draft of, a rough draft of something that you want the board to adopt in the way of advocacy, you could certainly share those at that point, and then we'll go from there.
And as the district does, I assume with most policies that are considered, do check with Strauss Esme to see what they have. Again, I'm sure they haven't done anything yet just because of the newness of this directive.
Monmouth County School Board is actually, as part of a training, gosh, it had to have been at least 2 years ago, because I was there with you and I think Robin Lynch, discussed this topic, and they talked about it from a different point of view. And it wasn't so much about keeping parents in the dark, but it was about educators and school districts recognizing the fact that school might be the only place that students felt comfortable truly identifying as who they were, and that alerting to the parents to that fact might actually put the students in danger once they went home. So I think there's also a lot of different angles that we need to think about when we think in terms of this.
Well, Ralph, I'd say that, if we wanted to send a letter, I would support sending a letter against that. Looking through our policies, the different things in our tardiness policies, we're, going to have a conference with parents if students are late a few times to school, but we're not going to have a conference with parents when their kid comes in and, says, I want to be known by a different name or something like that. And that just strikes me as the wrong, direction, where we need to, help, our parents in the community understand what's going on at school, as opposed to, I know you're saying keep them in the dark, but if we're not having any communication, what is that?
And Ralph, I don't have any objection having this discussion. I absolutely think it should be discussed. Like, obviously a very, very important and possibly very difficult policy that's being perhaps imposed upon us. Honestly, though, I haven't read it yet. If what you're saying, it is concerning to me, but we should have that discussion. I don't have any problem with that.
Right, and that's what I wanted to have, because as Chris just pointed out, I think and what Allison actually said is that if kids only feel safe in school, and the school's going to take the steps to make sure the student is safe, then maybe we need to go an additional step further, where we're the in-between between the parent and the student, with child study teams or psychologists or whatever it is to bridge any kind of gap that a student feels they can't communicate with their parents. So I think that is a better route to go than just saying you don't tell the parents. And and what I'll do, I can, if you Google this, it'll come up, but I can forward this article to everybody. It was on I think NJ.com. This one was. Okay.
I think that's an excellent idea, and the reason that they have such a high suicide rate is because that isn't being done. You can't keep it from the parents, and you must offer the psychological help. But the suicide rate is a big secret, and it's very high. Thank you.
Any other comments or new business from board members? Okay, seeing none. At this time, I'll open the floor for public comment, and this is for any matter of school matter of community interest.
Betsy Cross, I live in Wall. I sent an email yesterday. Sadly, you do always have to go back and look at stuff, because the reason we spent the $100,000 on the audit, I know you've been here for 2 meetings and you seem to be the scholar on it, but the reason we did it was because Mr. Smythe said that he wasn't handing out reports and he wasn't letting anybody know, and the auditor told us that food service was bankrupt. So when we asked the question of why it was bankrupt, Mr. Smythe told us it was because of block scheduling. And I said, how could that be? It's 4 or 5 years later. So I did a couple quick Oprahs, and we found out that Mr. Smythe was paying Xerox, the person that he didn't call back, out of food service. He was paying Dell computers, and he was paying electric bills out of food service money. So that's the reason we had to do it, because once the Oprah came back, we realized it was not because of block scheduling. And if it had been because of block scheduling, you would have got right on it that next year. You wouldn't have waited 5 years and when it went bankrupt, and Mr. Smythe hid all the reports. That's why there are reports in here now for food service, and we're running at a negative $45,000. So of course that is not mentioned tonight, because God knows why, but we're at 45,000 negative. So just to clear that up for you. I did pull a report for Mr. Smythe's contracts versus his W-2. And I put it in writing, and I'm going to give it to the co-store and the Star Ledger. And I'd like to know why Mr. Smythe's W-2s are higher than his contracts. Because do we now have to go back and look at everybody's W-2s? This would be crazy. But Mr. Smythe's contract in 2005, so his calendar goes from July to July. I take the 2 numbers, I divide it by 2, and he's off by almost $20,000. And I can't figure out why. But that's a big problem. So Mr. Smythe, I asked you to go on the record tonight and let us know why your W-2s are off. And Mr. Gross, you also got a copy of it. And Mr. Adonisio, you're the chairman of F&F. You should be on this. So all the documents were there. Everybody got them on the board. And in writing, we need to know why Mr. Smythe's W-2s are more than his contracts. Because no matter what you look at, there's something the matter with it. Over the bus compound, I know you're trying to rush to get out of here to get to St. Stephen's Green, a few of you. But if you could answer the questions on the bus compound on the record about what you specifically did before putting us into a 10-year contract, it should all be on the record. We should know what you physically did, what you physically looked at, because the buses have been parked for 19 years somewhere else. So for 4 days, in a matter of 4 days, we've now parked the buses in Howell. I would have thought people would have visited it, but I haven't heard who on the board ever actually visited it. I know it's election time, and a lot of people are saying it was to just say, please vote for me because I got the bus compound out of Wall and it's not in your backyard. It looks kind of strange. Couple of other things with the bus compound. Howell said at their meeting when they approved the contract what they would not share with the public, which was very strange, that you had the same calendar as Wall. Did somebody up here tell them that we're going to go on their calendar? Because I know they have off the Jewish holidays, and our calendar doesn't match their calendar. So where did that come from? The other thing is snow plowing. They said they're going to snow plow their buses first. So what does that mean? We could have hours delays because they're going to do their buses first, and then they're going to do ours. And if, you know, how much of the 2.8 million are you looking to spend next year? That's what we need to know. That's what a responsible board would do. They would lay it all out. I don't think we should pay for any paving or any fencing until just, if you're going to park the buses there, just don't do all that. Why are we going to do all that and maybe hate it and then say, oh, well, God, now we got to stay because we just spent $2 million on paving, fencing, and lighting. I mean, that just wouldn't make any sense. So I would just like everybody on the record, because it is tape recorded, so everybody can hear, because you see all the comments on Facebook. There's hundreds of them. What were these people thinking? We don't know because you won't answer, and people have to rush and get out of here. So all of that we'd like to know, and what extra money of the $2.8 million are you going to spend on the buildings? And I do see that B6 in here. And
Ms.
we've only
Cross, your
spent,
time is up.
we're only spending $580,000 on the buildings, but we're looking to spend $2.8 million in Howell. So please go over everything to do with why you made your decisions for Howell before you rush out to St. Stephen's Green. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Are there any questions or comments from board members?
I believe we had a response to the incessant allegations, this time from 2000, and I believe 14 years ago, about Brian Smythe. It was a
Yes, and
discussion we had.
Mr. Gross is going
Thank
to
you.
handle that.
I just want to clarify that I don't think that at any point we said we were going to spend the whole 2.8 in Howell. Is that correct? And it's not what Ralph's F&F minutes said, and that's not, we didn't say that, right?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss that.
With regard to the 2005 W-2 form, as most people know, a W-2 form reflects the total compensation that an employer provides to an employee. A contract may be for one specific job or one specific term of the job title. After this was brought to my attention, certainly, I was advised, and we looked into this matter. The compensation that was provided to Mr. Smythe was his contract in his position, but also during that taxable year of 2005, there was additional responsibilities that the Board of Education required Mr. Smythe and other employees to perform. Those responsibilities are provided with additional compensation, which was also board approved. So obviously, when you take the contract document and the total salary for the contract and you add that to the additional responsibilities and compensation provided for those responsibilities during the tax year, the W-2 form is not going to equal the contract for the particular job description and the job title that you are referring to. That's just common knowledge to people who understand the difference between a W-2 form and a contract for a specific performance.
The, I just want to explain two things. That the reason that the board did a forensic audit, and I believe that I have the collective opinion of the board, was to put things behind us, to make sure that doubts were satisfied. And we had, you know, we had a horrible scene happen here years ago, and the prosecutors were in and investigated, and we had a forensic audit done, and the accurate recommendations of the forensic audit and findings are of minimal consequence. There were issues that were already addressed. There were several minor issues that were addressed, and there were no findings of any substance. And so we need to move forward. It's time to stop. This part is my opinion, that we need to stop looking backwards, and we need to continue in everything that we do to make lemonade out of lemons and to stop making lemons out of lemonade. Having said that,
Madam
do you have
President,
a comment
just
as well?
one quick thing. So it was brought up about comments about the bus compound and due diligence and rushing and everything like that. So just by way of history, I think we've spent about 3.5, 4 years researching this. And just sitting here, I have a list of 15 different sites that we looked at, got numbers on, talked about, that potentially could have been sites where we could have put the buses, but because of costs and property being sold and different things like that, dealing with the state, it just didn't work out. So this is just what I remember, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing a couple. So we certainly researched every corner of Wall looking for a place. And when this particular spot came up, and it was brought to the committee's attention, it was the first one after, I mean, just looking at these 15, that actually made sense. Aside from being able to stay where we are, it was a win for the district, and it frees up money for us to spend on much needed things here in the schools, because we know there's many things that are needed. And you know, we replaced the auditorium seats here this year. That was needed. So we're able to use money that would have been put into pavement for things that are needed, and we're going to continue paying the same amount of money that we were paying. And one of the things about the gas, whether we park them up in North Wall or we park them just a couple miles outside our border, I can guarantee you that there's probably no way anybody can track gas usage to say we're using more gas. I think it's probably almost impossible. So certainly from my standpoint, and being in the meeting, the standpoint of the other members on F&F at that time, and the sentiment of the board, it seems like it's just a win-win for us. So I think that's important to state, that I think we did a good job with this one.
Thank you, Mr. Adonisio. And I was going to say one final thing, but I'm going to say it, it might not be final, that the job of the administration is to bring forward to the board programs, policies, procedures, and any other thing after they have fully vetted them to their satisfaction. And they bring to the board a proposal about various things. And it's the board's job to make sure that they are comfortable with that proposal, and if they are not, to further explore that proposal. And 9 board members were comfortable with the proposal that was made and felt that it was vetted sufficiently for them to be comfortable to vote on it, and that it was in the best interest of the district and the schools and the children, because that's what it's all about. Mr. Smythe, did you have something?
Sure, to continue with the theme of correcting the misstatements during public comment, with regard to food service and the bringing to the attention of the board, it was not the auditors, it was myself bringing to the attention of the board that the district was going into a position where we were not going to be able to sustain as an enterprise account operating the food service program in the manner we were operating it, because not on an annual basis, but over on an overall balance sheet, that we were going to end up into the negative that information was confirmed by the annual school auditors in their audit that was reported that November or December. It's also a false statement that Mr. Smythe hid reports. So that all goes into the theme of the misinformation that is provided with regard to the contract costs and the W-2 and the comment that it's a big problem. It's been responded to, and it is not a big problem. And as the attorney said, W-2 report is a report on total compensation. A contract is a contract that you enter into prior to the year. That's on a school year basis. W-2s are on a calendar year basis. With regarding the other costs that were attributed to food service, this Board of Education, this many years later, approved in January utilizing indirect costs for the food service program. That was one of the comments with regard to what was found by the Department of Agriculture, that we did not obtain a indirect cost rating to charge food service for certain costs. We were just charging them. That indirect cost, you do no longer have to apply to the state. It's automatically issued to every school district, and we could utilize those indirect cost rates to charge enterprise type accounts or non-general fund accounts for services rendered overall by the district, such as computer networking, business office costs, custodial services, and other similar costs. So we didn't obtain an indirect cost, but those type of costs were attributable to the food service program as it was going to be approved this year. At the end of the school year, the district looked at the balance in the account for food service and determined that we were going to use the threshold of 3 months operating expenses, which is the allowable amount enterprise accounts are allowed to maintain on their balance sheet before the district would start assessing indirect cost rates to the food service program. And with regard to the amount of the indirect costs, if you take the allowable indirect cost percentage or the rate, which I believe in the years we're talking about, and again, this is 2004, 05, 05, 06, 06, 07, the indirect cost rate was about 17%. I don't know the exact figure that you would apply that to, but sales were at 1.4 million, so it was probably in the neighborhood of $800,000 to $1 million that you would be able to apply 17% indirect cost rate to and charge the food service program. It was just done in a different manner. But I just wanted to clarify those last public comments that were made. And it is really unfortunate because, again, this will probably continue between now and next month. I think the intentions were great, that we're going to follow up and address questions that are asked during public comment or comments that are made. We did it between August and September. We've done it now between September and October, and it is just an exhausting, time-consuming process. And it's unfortunate that this is what the district is doing, that this is what I spend my time doing, this is what I have my office staff doing. Then I'm looking at emails from 2007 that I refused to answer by a sales rep for Xerox, that I'm looking at cost comparisons between, Xerox, and then we flip to a different vendor in 2011, or going back to Xerox 13 years ago. Again, we should be really spending our time trying to look forward and not continuing to just address, inaccurate statements and misrepresentation of information. You want to make a difference? Run for the Board of Education. And then actually be held accountable for the things you say when you come to a board meeting.
If we were to continue this policy and this individual is to monopolize this really what is both a right and a privilege, at the next budget meetings next spring, we're going to have to hire a full-time employee just to respond to the multitude of email requests, OPA requests, and on and on and on. And frankly, the irony is not lost on me, I hope it's not lost on the board, that this individual purportedly also is looking for the school district to improve, have better educated kids, save money, save the taxpayers, when in fact that individual's antics, and I'll emphasize antics, cost this school district money. It's sad.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Good night.